Hello, my name is Jennifer Wilson and I'm with the Gulfport School District, and today we are going to talk about Standard RI 4.2, Finding the Main Idea. Alright, so let's get started. First things first. Let's talk about our learning target. This is the goal we are working for with our standard for today. I can determine the main idea of an informational text and the details that support it. Alright, so let's review some vocabulary. First thing, because we're talking about informational text, what is an informational text? Informational text is nonfiction writing written with the intent to inform the reader. Okay, and because we're talking about main idea, we hear that word a lot, but what does it mean? The main idea is what the text is mostly about. So the most important thing that the text is mainly about. Okay, and our supporting details, they support the main idea by giving important facts, examples, and other information that explain more about it. All right, so let's try to find the main idea of our passage. All right, this is an informational text, so we're looking at things that give us information. So it's going to be a little bit different than if you're just reading a story. All right, so what I like to do first is I like to start off by reading my passage. This is something we do in class called a close read. First, you're just reading through it just to see what it's even about. Okay, so if you want to pause the video, you can do that. Okay, so now hopefully you have read through it. So now we're going to read it because now we're going to be working towards finding the main idea, which is our second part of our close read. Do you wear a helmet when you ride a bike? The majority of people do not. In fact, it is estimated that only 20 to 25% of cyclists wear helmets, even though wearing a helmet could save their life if they were involved in a bicycle accident. Consider this sobering statistic. Nearly 75% of all fatal bicycle crashes involve head injuries. Furthermore, 722 people were killed in crashes in 2012. 83% of those killed were not wearing helmets. Wear a helmet when riding a bike, it could save your life. Alright, so we have some options on the right-hand side of what is the main idea. This is typically how we would look in the classroom. You have different options. Alright, so what I like to do is I like to look for words that repeat. We see a pattern. Okay, so I look at words like bicycle, bike, and I see the word helmet repeats itself a lot. So obviously we're thinking about bicycle helmets. Okay, so let's look at our options to see what our main idea is going to be. Okay, so we have people do not like to wear helmets. A bicycle accident can happen to anyone. It is important to wear a helmet when riding a bike to prevent injuries and death. And it is not necessary to wear a helmet when riding a bike. All right, so when you go back to the text, you see a lot of information in there about wearing a helmet and why it's important. It doesn't say anything about how people don't like wearing them. That's more of an opinion. And it also doesn't say anything about it not being necessary, because obviously it's giving us facts about why wearing a helmet is important. So our answer for this one would be 3. All right, let's try another one. Hurricanes are large, intense storms that begin over the ocean where they gather heat and energy from the water. Hurricanes move slowly towards land, usually moving 10 to 20 miles per hour for more than a week. The most dangerous part of the hurricanes is the storm surge, when it reaches land and causes flooding. Wind and waves also contribute to the damage caused by these surges. Okay, we're going to do what we did with the last passage. We're going to look for words that repeat themselves, look for those patterns. And we see the word hurricane, so obviously we're talking about hurricanes and not any other storms. But look at the facts that we see from it. Okay, the first sentence we see what is a hurricane. Okay, then we start talking about how they are very dangerous. And then we see a lot of facts about what happens when a hurricane meets land. Okay, so let's look at our choices that we have on the right-hand side. All right, so hurricanes are dangerous storms. Okay, hurricanes begin over the ocean. One type of storm is called a hurricane. Hurricanes are different from other storms. All right, so looking at those choices, we just had made the comment that we're just talking about hurricanes. So number 4 would not be an option because we're not comparing it to other storms. We're just talking about hurricanes. So that one can be eliminated first. Okay, but look at 3. 3 is similar to number 4, where it says one type of storm is called a hurricane. Okay, with that one, yes, we are talking about hurricanes, and we are talking about facts about hurricanes, but we're not just talking about storms in general. Okay, so 3 would not be it. All right, so let's look at 1 and 2. All right, so a lot of times what I do is I look for that first sentence in my paragraph to see, what it's talking about, because usually in the first paragraph, that's when it introduces us, and that's where you find your main idea. But look here, it says hurricanes are large, intense storms that begin over the ocean where they gather heat and energy from water. Okay, so we see what they are, but look at the rest of the passage. Is it just talking about how they form? No, it's talking about what kind of damage they can do once they make landfall. So it would not be number 2. Sometimes that can be a little tricky. Yes, hurricanes begin over the ocean, but the answer would actually be number 1 because it's talking about how dangerous they are, how there's a lot of rainfall, there's a lot of storm surge, and what that can do to areas. So the main idea in this one, it's a little bit tricky, is number 1. Hurricanes are dangerous storms. All right, so let's look at another passage. All right, so we're still sticking with informational text. And this is an example of a historical text, which we will get to later. But this is something that it's about somebody. So this would be like a biography. All right, so let's look and see. Okay, you can take a moment to read through it. But I'm going to go ahead and read it to you so we can work on finding the main idea. All right, Wilbur and Orville Wright were brothers who were inventors even from a young age when they built kites and bicycles. Many people credit the Wright brothers with designing and building the first successful airplane. In 1903, their first flight only lasted 12 seconds, but it continues to inspire the people all over the world to learn about science and math, to work hard, and to realize their dreams, and to use imagination to achieve success. All right, so again, we're looking for those patterns. Our first sentence talks about who they are and that they were inventors, that Wilbur and Orville were inventors. It also talks about what they did, what makes them famous. And what they're famous for is they were the first ones to really design a successful airplane. So in 1903, they had their first flight. And then also how they've inspired others. All right, so let's look at our options to see what is the main idea. All right, so the Wright brothers worked hard. The Wright brothers were inventors who have inspired many people. Inventors build kites and bicycles. And the first flight was in 1903. All right, so the first thing I also like to do is to eliminate those answer choices that we know are not even going to be possible. So look at number 3. Inventors build kites and bicycles. That one can go ahead and be eliminated because we're not just talking about inventors themselves. We're actually talking about what the Wright brothers have done. So that one can be eliminated. That would be more of maybe something like a minor detail, but it would not be the main idea of our text. Okay, so look at number 1. The Wright brothers worked hard. Okay, they did, However, it is not the main idea of our text. I would not choose that one as the main idea because it's not just talking about how hard they worked, but it's also talking about what they've done and how they've also helped others. Okay, look at number 4. The first flight was in 1903. This is a perfect example of a supporting detail. That would be something that would back up the main idea, which we haven't found yet, but this would be more of a supporting detail, like what they did. So our last choice is number 2. Okay, it says the Wright brothers were inventors who have inspired many people. Okay, so that is our main idea because it's talking about who they are and what they have done for those throughout history. All right. All right, now we have a little bit longer text. We've added now 2 paragraphs. I had given you short paragraphs. Now we have 2 paragraphs. All right, so let's look at our text. You can take a moment and pause it to read it. But we're going to go ahead, and I'm going to go ahead and read it for you so we can be working on finding the main idea and the supporting details. All right, there are over 1 million words in the English language, and some of them have origins that might surprise you. For instance, the word disaster originated in Greek. In Greek, dis means bad, and aster means star. What does bad star have to do with the word disaster? Well, the ancient Greeks used to blame unfortunate events on unfavorable positions of the planets. Mussel is another interesting word. It is derived from a Latin root meaning little mouse because people used to think that mussels looked like little mice under the skin. What would you want to know more about? Its origin just might astound you. All right, so we have a lot of information in there. So let's go through and see patterns that we see. We're talking about words. We're talking about meaning of words. All right, so let's look at our choices to see the main idea. All right, so our first one, there are millions of words in the English language. It can be interesting to discover unusual word origins. Greek and Latin languages were formed long ago. Mussel means little star and disaster means bad star. All right, so I had given you some strategies to find the main idea. I know I had said earlier to go back to the first sentence of the text. Let's go back to the first sentence where it says there are 1 million words in the English language and some of them have origins that might surprise you. Okay, so let's go back and look at our choices again. Okay, so let's go ahead and eliminate those that we know would not be considered the main idea. All right, I'm looking at C first. Greek and Latin languages were formed long ago. Yes, it does talk about Greek and Latin languages, but that is not the main idea of our story. That's more of a detail. So I would go ahead and eliminate that choice. And then look at D. Mussel means little mouse and disaster means bad star. Okay, those were examples. And when we go back to talk about the definition of a supporting detail, it talks about examples. So D would be a supporting detail. So it would not be our main idea. So let's look at A and B. There are millions of words in the English language. It can be interesting to discover unusual word origins. All right, so with this one, our choice for the main idea would be B, because we're talking about discovering unusual words, where they come from. Not just the fact that there's millions of words, but where these words come from. Okay, so that one was a little bit harder because you've added 2 paragraphs, so you're going to be seeing more details that go with it. But if you use those strategies, by looking at patterns of words and looking at that first sentence, that will help you lead to the main idea of an informational text. All right, so that's our lesson for today, finding the main idea and supporting details and trying to figure out the difference between the two. These are some of the resources that I used. I found some things off Teachers Pay Teachers. So if you would like to use those, or if you would like to use more of those, this is where I found it. So thank you.